Welcome back to another episode of the Device Diaries. I'm your host, Guida Lovetes, and today, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm about to blow your mind. Today's episode 22, and you know me when it comes to this type of the guests that I invite. I want to learn from them too, so I don't just want to be talking about myself, okay? And this is the whole point of the Device Diaries. I want to interview different professionals in the space so they have their own perspective, so you guys can learn about what they do and how they do it. And subject, today's episode is very special because I'm not a dad, I'm a woman, I'm not a mom. So I don't know how it is to be a parent and be successful in sales. So I titled this episode Balancing Acts, Mastering Fatherhood and Sales Success. All right, you guys, without further ado, I want to welcome you to my guest. I'm going to butcher his last name, but it's okay. Brent Winter Holler. Did I say it right?
Spot on.
Yeah.
Perfect, Ida.
How
Thank
you
you.
doing, Brent?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. Just to give you guys a little background about Brent, the way and I met, we actually were in the same class in training. Okay, our sales training, and this guy was killing it. I'm like, who the heck is this guy? He was answering all the questions. He was super smart, and then I got to know him and his background. And I remember his wife being pregnant during that time. And I remember we were, I would never forget this because this actually made me emotional. And I'm not even a mom. And just watching him really care about his wife and his baby. So we were talking about disease states in the NICU, okay? Lots of sick babies, which is really heartbreaking. And we watched this video, and this guy was bawling. He was crying. And then I remember our trainer had to console him, right? And that it just shows you that not only how passionate he is with his job. He's also a passionate dad. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Brent. Brent, he's 37 years old. He went to Indiana University, took finance and INT, business major. He's born and raised in Indiana. He's been in med device rep for 3 years now. Only 3 years, and he's already killing it, you guys. Okay? Chicago territory. He's an ORS rep, which we don't really you guys won't even know what that means, but we'll keep going. Capital equipment, so that's what we sell. Started as an associate rep in 2021. Okay, traded stocks for 14 years prior to Med Device. He has his wife's name is Taylor. She's 32. He has a daughter named Lily. She's 16 months old, and a dog named Scooter, who is 4 years old. Okay, he was married to Taylor back in 2021. All right. All right, Brent, how are you? Let's get this started, okay? Let's get this rolling because I'm sure people like to. I told you I get really hyper. He didn't believe me. I get very energetic, okay? So, first things first, Brent, how do you do it? Okay, how do you juggle? I'm just going to get into it. How do you juggle being a dad and being in sales?
Yeah, great question. I definitely don't have it mastered, so you might have to change that subject line, but I'm trying my hardest and I'm learning every day. I think the biggest thing for me on both these avenues is just balance. So, when I first found out my wife was pregnant, obviously we were very excited, but I was in a newer role. I had just come from trading. I just started in medical device sales. We had just gotten married, and I always thought I was going to be, I couldn't wait to be a father. I was going to, I always had that drive and um, excitement towards being a father. So when I found out, I was ecstatic, but I also knew that there was very quickly going to be this work-life balance that I had to figure out. And I think the biggest thing that I learned very quickly was I I approached it as, hey, you're going to work from 8 to 5 or 8 to 6 or 7 to 6, and then you shut it off, you shut it down, and you go home to family. Um, and I quickly learned that that wasn't the case. In my role as an associate, and then in the role I'm in currently as an ORS and Medtronic, I have I'm blessed with not having to be on call all the time, which is great. But what I learned was that being able to find the pockets when there's downtime at work or when there's downtime in family life, you fill it with the other. So I am not an 8 to 4, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, or um, working man, working father, and then going home to my daughter and my wife and turning that off. I am working when I can and when I need to, but then when I have a space in between the meetings, or when I get home from the hospital, if I need to feed my daughter, I'm on, right? If I
Right.
finish dinner and we put our daughter to bed and I need to do a little bit more work, that's when I get to hop back on it and catch up. So um, it's I knew I was going to get into the balancing act, but I didn't know how unique it was going to be on a daily basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know. So just hold on to your phone like this. Make your
Okay,
like,
yes.
yeah. There you go.
Sorry.
There you go. I know. I know it's different, right? When you're using your phone, because now you're echoing, so the phone is kind of moving a little bit. This is
Yeah.
perfect. All right, we'll keep
Okay.
going, you guys. That's such a great answer, Brent. And you know what? That was he was he. If you guys are not watching this video, his phone is actually kept like tipping, and he kept like moving it, but he was still talking. So that's like functioning under stress. And I love that. And I feel like as a dad, right? You're like, you hear your kids crying in the background and then you're doing Zoom calls. So walk us through that, Brent. And that's such a great answer, by the way. And I don't know, don't have an experience. I don't have any kids. I have a dog, so I have the ability to travel whenever I want. I have a dog walker. I have a dog that takes care of my dog. So I can only imagine. And we travel a lot, guys. And like Brent mentioned, we have big territories, okay, as ORS reps. So we're capital equipment sales reps for those that are in different industries. That what we do. So we sell those big machines in hospitals, okay? Our main call point is basically, ICUs, ORs, so NICUs, PICUs, all that stuff, all right? It's funny when people ask me what I sell. I'm like, I sell brain monitors because that's just the easiest way I can explain it. But okay, let's keep going, Brent. So you've really brought up a good point about like work life balance. And I feel like that's such a huge thing that nobody really talks about because they're afraid, like, does that mean that I'm not working hard enough? No, you guys. When it comes to this type of job, all right, that it is a high stress job, you're gonna have to be able to shut things down because that's when you get burned out. Let's talk about that for a second. Like how, as a high functioning salesperson and the father of a little baby, like how do you balance it out? And you have a wife, your wife has needs too. So how do you make sure everybody's happy?
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm still learning that. But I think the biggest thing is when I was first interviewing for this role. I came from trading, so 14 years of being my own boss, making my own hours, only having to answer to myself. And then, I got into these interviews where new industry, no sales experience, no clinical acumen. My wife, luckily, is a nurse and a great one at that. But I knew that I was able to bring some stuff from trading, but I was going to learn a lot. So one of the things I focused on my interviews and kind of just um, my mantra was attitude, activity, and approach. And I remember pitching that in my interviews, and kind of it sparked a conversation with defining that and what that means to me, and I kind of went through the three different steps and just how that was going to make me a successful sales rep. And it's very similar, again, kind of like my last answer, but I just, when Lily was born, I tweaked it. So it was a different attitude, maybe more tenacious, you know, not aggressive, but you you wanted to spend your time well, right? Because there's just just the same amount of time, in a day. So just that attitude, activity, and approach was just altered a little bit. But I think the main thing, and this is going to sound so cliche, is communication, right? So you talk about it in relationships, communication's key, yada yada yada. But what I realized was, again, at Medtronic, and I don't know if that's across the industry wide, but I was able to. I basically had a team at home and a team at work, and both teams I communicate very well with. And I think that at Medtronic, and I can only speak on Medtronic, but Medtronic did a really good job, and my team did a really good job of understanding that and just communicating back. So if they needed me and they needed me to be on, they communicated that, and I worked it out again with my wife. If I was needed at home, I communicated that with my team at work, and they understood. again, I think this day and age, whether you're a mother or a father, there's there's an understanding that, you're not going to get somebody that's going to work 100 hours a week and, forget about their family or expect their spouse to, just stay at home with the kids while one person works. There's all these different ways to just be a family, right? And again, I can only talk about my personal experience, but my wife's a rock star. She's a
Mhm.
nurse. She's in nurse practitioner school. We have a 16-month-old. She's a great cook. Like she wears so many
Nice.
hats, and
Wow.
I just have learned to the best way I can make life easy is to continuously communicate with her, make sure that we have the same goals. So when I do need to be pulled away or I do need to spend more time at work, she understands what our dream board is, what our goals are, and again, it goes back to that team on the other side, the Medtronic team or the med device team, where they should understand. I think at this day and age, if you're upfront about your family and your values, that that should be taken into account.
I love that. That is such a freaking great answer, by the way. You guys, if you guys didn't take notes of the triple A's I just mentioned, you totally missed out. And we're going to dig deep into that because I really wanted you to talk about this. But before that, oh my gosh. Now you guys see what I love, why I love this subject, okay? Because this is something that I don't know. I don't have an experience with. And it doesn't matter if Brett, you know what? All parents are the same. And I love how you talk about partnership. And that's huge, right? Obviously, I'm single. Hello, I have Teddy. I have a dog named Teddy. So I don't get to experience that. So I literally just do whatever the heck I want. All right, which is good and bad at the same time. But the point here is, though, having a really strong partner is huge, and it starts with communication. It starts with understanding each other needs, and that leads you back to sales, right? And I always like to talk about this. Like, I like to pursue my customers as if they're going to be my future lovers. I understand. I understand the love languages. I would read nonverbal communication, nonverbal cues. Okay. Sometimes I can be a lot, so I would like just watch the way they react. If they step back a little bit, I'll step back. I wouldn't be on their space. So having that understanding, which goes back to my favorite subject in the world, EQ, emotional intelligence. I feel like there's so many sales reps, and I don't know if you agree with me, Brent, that just don't have it, to where they're literally invading people's spaces and they're on their face, they're talking too loud, they're super hyper energetic, which, by the way, you don't have to be super hyper energetic as a salesperson, okay? Just mirror your customer's energy. Okay, I will literally watch if my customer's a little timid, like I do too much. I'll be okay, like I'll talk like this. But if they're like, I'm like, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm talking about. So let's go back to the three A's. Okay, I want you to explain to us what it means.
Sure, I'd love to. So again, their attitude, activity, and approach. And going back to my interviews, again, I was, sitting in front of sales reps, seasoned sales reps, a hiring manager, people that had all this experience, whether it was in, my division that I was applying for or surgical, and other things. And I knew it was going to get talked about. So I had to find a way to show that being a 34-year-old trader, um, trying to enter this industry wasn't something that I took lightly. I was able to spin that very easily because it was like, hey, you might have a college graduate that's applying for this job, but they kind of have nothing to lose. Where I already have a job, successful at it. I have a fiance at the time, is what it was, or I was married. I was married. I
Yeah.
just got married. Um, I should know
Typical dude. He doesn't know
that.
the date. It's okay.
It says mastering fatherhood, not mastering being a husband, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had to find like a few different talking points that I could really like dig into, and I was actually speaking with a friend of mine that was an orthopedic surgeon, and he brought this up, and we kind of like developed it together. And it was again attitude, activity, and approach. So attitude is going to be just how you're going to, like what your mindset's going to be every day when you wake up. So again, my attitude, and as I explained this to the hiring manager, was, I'm new, but I'm also like seasoned um in the idea of working, right? So my attitude is going to be, I want to hit the ground running. I came from trading. I'm super competitive. Um, we all have, there's money to make everywhere. Um, outside of competitor, like, so Guide and I, we work together, right? We can both make money. But when I get to see, Guida do something great in her territory, that's just gonna, like, start a fire under me. It's gonna make me want to do the same thing and replicate that. So that was, the activity, or I'm sorry, the attitude piece of it. Activity was easy because, again, it was, hey, I'm brand new. So as an associate rep, um, it was my way to show how I was going to develop quickly to be considered for the next promotion and for the real job, is what I like to call it. Medtronic did a great job of. I thought I was going to, when I applied for the associate rep role, I thought I was going to be a glorified intern. I thought I was going to walk around with the rep. I was going to do, the stuff they didn't want to do. And I was graced with a great rep, um, who allowed me to divide and conquer. Because again, I showed him very quickly that my activity was, hey, if you're going to let me go sharpen my teeth by myself, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna dive in head first, and we're gonna rock it. And we learned that very quickly, and then that just turned into, um, like, I had a 3-month review and a 6-month review, and I was able to bring this back and talk, say, hey, this is what I told you about my attitude, this is what I told you about my activity. um, and then approach was, it kind of goes back to, how you were just explaining your EQ. And that was, i I think I'm very self-aware. I think I would like to think that I have a pretty good at, like, EQ, but I wasn't going to be, even though I was, 34 years old at the time, I was going to be the guy that walked in and demand, pushed people around, or pushed a sale, or pushed a customer that wasn't comfortable. And that was, I think I just got very lucky coming from a different industry, because I was learning on the job. So I didn't have the chance to be aggressive or confrontational. I walked into a hospital, I was making sure I wasn't going across the red line. I was
Mm.
talking to the right people at the OR desk and that type of thing. And I was so, aware, and, like, I just kept myself in check so much that when I got in front of the right customer, they saw how much I cared and how much I was, aware and apparent and just, like, present, that they ended up opening up to me even more, and I became pretty successful pretty quickly. And I realized that early, and I decided to stick with it. So now that I'm gaining the experience and I had the promotion and I'm the ORS, rep in Chicago, I still love the idea of, hey, you're gonna smile when you see me. I don't want you to
Mm.
roll your eyes. I don't want you to, think I'm going to upsell you when you know you're when you're worried about that, or when that's happened before. You're going to get, like, Brant, almost like the father.
Mm.
I care, and I want to get you exactly what you want. So again, I think I covered, like, attitude, activity, approach. I don't
Yeah,
know
you
if
did.
you want me to dive in a little bit more, but
No, yeah, that's
I mean,
perfect.
yeah, that was exactly, I still reference it, and I still, say that all the time, because I do think that all three of those things, anybody out there, whether it's in med device, pharmaceuticals, or a random other, industry, I think that when you think about those three words and how they apply to what you're trying to do, I think it can work across the board.
I love that, you guys, and I hope you were taking notes, because that's huge, you guys. And for those, I can't tell you, Brent, how many, like, people reach out to me. Like today, I have an actual doctor reach out to me. She wants to break into the med device sales world, because it's such an awesome industry. And again, like, to Brent's point, he made a really huge point about like, hey, if I'm coming into your ORs or to your ICUs or whatever, I'm not gonna upsell you. I'm not there to be super aggressive. Okay. I feel like, and I say this, okay, not to be mean, but I can really say whatever I want. That's why I created this podcast. Is that a lot of times when people teach people how to sell, hey, if you haven't gotten kicked out of the OR, you haven't earned the right. That's rite of passage. Okay, I've gotten kicked out, but not intentionally because like they kicked me out, but they like let me back in. Okay. And I'm not going to go into the story. We'll talk about it later. I'm sure I've talked about this in the past, but it's embarrassing when that happens. So follow the rules, you guys. Follow the freaking rules. Okay. It's as simple as like vendor mate, getting your badges. Like what he just said, know where to step. Like I would always be like, when I was new, I'm like, they're like, ma'am, that's a red line. You're, and I'm like, ma'am, you're supposed to have a bouffant on. Put your hair up, ask those questions. Okay. Make sure you ask. When I was starting, unfortunately, nobody really trained me. They just threw me into the fire. So I was left and right getting kicked out of ORs. But then they'll feel bad for me because they know I'm new. Because they see if you're sincere or not. And they saw my sincerity. Like, I'm just don't know what to do. Like, tell me how to wave, tell me where to point, just tell me what you want. And I'll do it because I really want to earn this business. And so I did. And the cool part about Brent's story, which we actually had never had a guest that used to be an associate rep. So this is awesome. Okay. And for those of you guys who's trying to break in, the emails guide at every freaking time. Listen to my podcast. That's why I created this podcast. Start as an associate role. Okay. You don't have to have a freaking what do you call it? A clinical background. Okay. I was a personal trainer. Brent was, trading. Okay. Come on, you guys. We don't have any clinical background whatsoever. But what we have in common is one thing. We have the drive, we're tenacious, and we understand people. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. So let's step back and talk about why is it important. I mean, again, in your relationship too, like you have to get to know your wife's love language, right, Brent? Otherwise, you're gonna sleep on the couch. Let's talk about that. Why is it important to understand your customers' love language, just like how you do it with your wife and your children and your kid and your baby? Amen. Your baby, she's still little. She doesn't know any better. But let's talk about that with your wife.
Yeah. I mean, I think that my wife we've known each other since 2017. She has a very type A personality. So I know, like, I learned very early just what her drive was. And I think that helped out from the get go. Again, knowing your partner, right? Knowing your customer, knowing your partner. So in terms of my wife, I knew that she had this drive for medicine. She was, I guess her love language is like she likes flowers, she likes the
Gift giving.
the nice words, all that type of stuff.
Words of affirmation.
She'll never turn away a gift. But it was understanding my wife, how we connected. And when I think of just customers, it just goes back to that EQ. It's like when I walk into a meeting or a hospital, I can learn very quickly, one, what the customer wants, how the customer's feeling, and two, what I think is most important is like I guess the timeline of it, right? Anybody in med device, you're going to have a pipeline, you're going to have timelines, you're going to have upper management expecting you to get things across the finish line, sooner rather than later, or in a certain quarter, and that type of thing. And you always have to answer those. But, I think that the big thing for me was when I walked into a room, I could understand how the customer felt. You can kind of gauge based on a conversation, a quick first meeting, you can understand what priority that was to them and how important it was. And with that, I kind of use that to understand, hey, this is going, it allowed me to set my pipeline correctly and not overpromise and underdeliver. And again, I guess going back to my wife, it's the same thing. It's just that communication, that those setting expectations and knowing that, hey, I mean, with a spouse, with a significant other, you don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, right? So just telling her, I'm a very I guess I'm like a hopeless romantic.
Hmm.
So wear my heart on my sleeve, as you said, in the introduction. When my wife was pregnant, we were in training. The NICU portion got brought up, and all I could think about was my wife. And I just prayed for a healthy baby. And it. Sorry, that was kind of like
No,
sidetrack
that's
there. But
awesome. That's
again,
awesome.
it just goes back to I'll always wear my heart on my sleeve, which allows me to say, like, I'll always over communicate. And that's only helped in every facet of my life, whether it be my wife about my kid, and work. It all kind of just gels together
Ties
now.
in together. I know it's so true, and this is a good point, you guys. You know, when we're selling to humans, okay. First of all, think about this for a second. All right, we're not selling to robots. We're selling to freaking humans, the smartest people in the whole planet. All right, so you have to understand this too. They have their own personal life too. They're gonna have good days and bad days. And if you don't understand how to read human emotions, you're not supposed to be in sales, guys. If they're having a bad day, don't try to sell them shit, like walk away, like back up and let them do their thing. Let them readjust. Just offer solution, offer value. I think if you lead with that versus just throwing in products at them, and think about it if you walk in the freaking mall, right? Okay, this is Gaida. Don't talk to me. Just like literally every 5 minutes. Try this, try that. This is sample. Come here. Let me do your hair. Let me do your. I'm like, dude, I'm just here to pick up a freaking pillowcase, okay? And then I'm leaving. So talk about that at freaking Costco. I get harassed at Costco all the time. I'm like, ma'am, do you need a cell phone? I'm like, my company pays for my phone. Do you need a water softener? I don't have a house. Let's talk about that, Brent. Why is it important to understand? I really want you to really discuss this with people because I feel like a lot of sales rep are really lacking this right now. So why is it important to really understand that when we're dealing with our customers, they're gonna have issues with their wives and their kids and all this other things that's going on with their life. Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the kind of my last answer, and that's just being present and reading the customer. You know, I could talk about trading. Um, I can talk about this job, but you go in with an idea, with a mindset, with a game plan, and it might
But
happen
that's
10% of the
but that's
time.
the game. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I want you to talk
Yeah.
about. How often, like, you have this big plan, right? This is what's gonna be. I'm gonna walk in looking like this, and I'm gonna say this first. How often does that work out for you?
Yeah, I
Like
would
a
say
hundred
about 10%.
percent.
I would say about 10% of the time. Um,
Exactly.
you know, the way I look at it is I have this pipeline, or I have this idea, an opportunity down the road, and you know, that first meeting is not to talk about that opportunity. That first meeting is to build a relationship, to see how I can help the customer, let the customer tell me what they need, how I can help them, how I can make their life easier. Um, and if you approach it that way, you will be successful quicker, I believe, than going in with your head down, knowing what you want to do, knowing what you want to accomplish, and not taking no for an answer. Making sure you get that point across. It's not always going to happen that way. You gotta be agile and be able to audible. And I think I find success quicker with that approach than saying, "Hey, this is my agenda for today, this week, this month. I'm going to walk into these hospitals. I'm going to get, I'm going to pitch these opportunities." Um, you learn. Again, I've only been in this industry for 3 years, and it's a specific division of Medtronic. But I can, when I think about my tenure, my 3-year tenure, that's what I've learned the quickest is I'm the rep. And that's how I look at it, like I've said this so many different times in front of a customer. You're the customer. You tell me. You tell me your timeline. You tell me what you want, and I'll get it done for you. And again,
Mhm.
it's the empathy, it's boosting their ego, letting them know
Yeah.
that they're the decision maker that's going to get, the opportunity across on their timeline. Um, it always, allows them to let their guard down a little bit, and again, I usually end up seeing the opportunity, across the finish line earlier than I was expecting.
Yes, yes, because what is the term that you Americans use? You tap my back, I tap yours. Sorry, I'm from the Philippines, so
Scratch. You scratch your back. You scratch my
there you
back. I'll
go.
scratch yours.
Scratch. Close enough. See, I always mess it up. All right. I'll learn this, you guys. Okay, it's scratch. So that's exactly how it is, you guys. And I can't tell you how many times like I help the customer be like, hey, like tell me what to do. Tell me when to show up. I've done it to our guide. Like, I'm really busy right now. Can you show up on the weekend? Yes. I would be happy to. Can I call you on the weekend? Yes. I'll have my phone on. All those little things that you guys do, the extras, all right, the extra curricular activities is what I like to call it. Those add up. And that's what creates a bond. That's what creates something special. And that's what turns just a you trying to pursue a customer to an actual partnership. Okay. You seal the deal. And guess when you seal the deal? Now you have more control over the deal. And I'm not saying like manipulative control. I'm saying that they're actually going to listen to you now. Okay, now the tables turned, right? Let's talk about that, Brent. Can you tell us a story to where it started as, I love stories. It started as like, oh my gosh, like this is really hard, but you pursued, you pursued, you pursued. And then now they're like, hey, Brent, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of so many stories, and I think that in my division, our division, particularly, there's, in med device, you have all these different. You have surgery that's on call, right, and they're dealing with the surgeons, and that's it. Um, in our division, it's a little bit different, right? You have to win clinically, and then you're not getting a PO. You need to then move that up the ladder to supply chain. Supply chain has to go to value analysis. It has to come back. It all takes time. You're playing with and talking and working with so many different people as the customer in the hospital. So, I guess one of my stories is we had TBD funds for hospital. So we had Medtronic money that was funny money. It expires, use it or lose it type deal. And it was a newer product to that hospital. And the team wanted it. The team loved it. We evaled it. They, you know, all the forms came in. They were all positive. And supply chain just tried to find different ways to use it. They had all these different questions, and there were certain people I was working with that just didn't give me the time of day, or they moved at a slower pace than we were trying to get these funds used by. Now the team was the customer, the clinicians were asking for the product. Where was it? Um, and again, it was one not flooding their. So now going back to supply chain, who I need to move the needle, not flooding their inbox. But when I got to work with them, I was efficient, right? So, you know, some people that I thought were hard to get a hold of, it was, well, are they hard to get a hold of because I'm a rep, or are they just super busy? And again, it's those first questions. It's when you do get the meeting. So all this stuff happened, right? Clinicians, evals, and then I get a meeting with supply chain. You would think, oh, maybe the first thing you do is, hey, talk about the eval, talk about, um, getting the PO and getting this into fruition. I took it a little bit slower, and I got that first meeting, and I made sure that I understood what supply chain's priorities were, what that individual person that was doing, what was going on in her life. Without prying, you can kind of talk about things, and the more you open up, the more they open up, the more you're not pushy, the more relaxed they are, and again, you start to see that like onion unravel, or just let
Yep.
down their shoulders a little bit. And again, it ended up being a success, but it was going to be a success no matter what. It was more getting in front of supply chain, talking to them, understanding their needs, and what that individual was kind of going through. They were very busy in that time, and when she found out that I wasn't trying to push anything, um, and that when she was ready, I'd be ready. All of a sudden, then she was calling me, And not only
Mm.
that, but then after that PO, she ended up reaching back out to me for additional equipment. And then it was a real relationship where it was back and forth. Um, and it just made everything a lot easier.
Oh my gosh, you guys, that is such a good story. See what happens when you're tenacious but not pushy, and it's kind of like dating, right? I mean, I'm in the dating world right now. Like, desperation is unsexy, you guys. When guys kept like bugging you, I'm really busy. I'm always traveling. When somebody's texting me 24/7, like, what are you doing? Where are you? So think about that if you do that to your customers. Like, they have their own lives too, right? It's not cool, you know. It's desperate, and desperate is not, again, it's not sexy, you know, it's not attractive. And it just shows that it basically takes away you being a rep and wanting to help. All it shows is like, all I want is to sell. Okay. And I talk about this in my last episode, actually. And I talked about how, yes, we have a quota. Yes, we have a quota to meet every freaking, like, we do calls every quarter. Like, how are we gonna hit it? Well, first of all, you have to understand how you make money. That's really, really important, right? So if you don't understand your quota, you're out. Get out of here. Like, I'm not even gonna say more. Just think about that for a second. Let that process. All right. So, but then, okay, the biggest thing is, like, I feel like a lot of reps really, really obsess over their quota, meaning they'll stare at their computer every freaking 2 seconds. And what is that doing to you? That's not doing you any good. You're just creating stress in your life. Okay. And then go circling back to work life balance. Like, that's just, I don't want to start my day like, oh my gosh, I'm screwed. Like, how the heck am I going to find this? You know, what do I do? Well, first thing, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I do every morning. So I wake up really early. And I want to know what, because I have a feeling we have a pretty similar routine here. We're kind of the same person. I have a feeling. All right. All right. So I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. Okay. First thing I do is I read the Bible. I'm a Christian, read the Bible, and then I start reading books. I don't watch TV. I don't watch the freaking news. I don't watch anything that's going to stress me out. No scary movies, forget it. Nope. Sorry. No. I don't watch reality TV because it's trash. I'm not really learning anything from it. All I do is, like, when I'm watching something, it's educational. So it's YouTube stuff that's teaching me stuff. I don't listen to music that are degrading towards men or women. Period. I just don't, because I don't need that negativity in my brain. So after I wake up, read the Bible, what do? I edit my podcast, because that to me is very relaxing. Okay. I look at the time. Oh my gosh, it's only 5:05 in the morning. I have so much time. And I don't, and then what do? I meditate. I practice gratitude. I work out, sometimes I work out in the morning, sometimes it really depends. I take a cold shower, I really prep my body. Okay. Prep your body before you start, because you want to have a clear mind. And think about it, the times that you're so stressed the heck out, you'll panic, right? And the customers can read through that. So I want to stay as calm as possible. And I would say this to myself. So I'll do affirmations. Gaida, you're freaking great. You're successful. You just killed your day. And I'll pretend that all of the checklists that I have, that I've already accomplished it. You already answered a billion emails today. Good job. You already made this call. You already got this big PO. Good job. I'll pretend, so that's like part of my routine. And then what? And then I open up my emails. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all I got? 10? I thought it was going to be more than this. So why stress yourself out for no reason? Just like looking at your quota. Focus on your daily activities, you guys. If you're staring at your emails, if you're answering emails in 2 seconds all day long, 5 days a week, you're not working. Right? Let's talk about that, Brent. I want to hear about your Brent's routine here. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, no, that's great. Very similar, but also very different. So, going back to the subject of the fatherhood and sales success, my morning is very important to me, almost like the opposite way. So, what I love to do and where I think I win and start my day off correctly is I give my wife time. So, instead of, again, getting waking up and thinking about work right away, I give her the option to either take a walk as a family or get to a workout. And
Mm.
usually she gets to work out because that's how she likes to start her day, and she'll ask for a walk later in the day. So she wins both ways. But that allows her to get her day off the exact way she wants it, and it allows me to get time with my daughter before
Mhm.
my day gets busy and before I don't know what's going to happen. So my morning starts out every morning with that option for my wife. And if my wife goes to a workout class, which she does the majority of the time, I get to wake my daughter up. I get to feed her her bottle. So
Mhm.
where you're reading the Bible, I'm feeding her a Bible, or I'm feeding her her bottle, and I'm reading her a couple of stories that are
Aw,
not as in depth as the Bible, but they're about puppies and
yeah.
animals and stuff like that. But that's how I love to start my day, and it's very important to me. So yeah, that's
That's
what allows me to get myself going, and then when my wife gets back, it's like, "Hey, I'm ready to rock and roll." I feel very my buckets are filled at home, and then I can, just get laser focused at work.
That's awesome, you guys. See how like it's different, but it's kind of similar at the same time. Like you're basically, giving yourself time to do whatever it is that you need to do for yourself. So you're not panicky when you go out on the floor and you go out and start selling. And I love this subject so much because again, like I'm not a dad, I'm not a mom, but I kind of am a dog mom. My dog, he doesn't really do anything. He just sleeps, all day long. So I would practice my sales pitch to my dog. I love doing that because he doesn't answer back. He doesn't make fun of me. But that's my favorite part, by the way. And I'm like, today you're gonna be an anesthesiologist, and I'm gonna sell you this. And this guy's like, really? But anyways, so going back to your daughter, okay, this is a question that I obviously don't know the answer to. Um, do you feel that the moment you had your child, that your why changed?
Um, I guess a little bit, but I'm a hopeless romantic, so that's like my why changed when I met my wife. And
Hmm.
that's easy to explain because I was a trader when I met my wife. So I was a 30-year-old, trading in an office that was 90% males. And again, uber competitive. You're making or losing money every day, hopefully making money. And, um, there was some immaturity to that. I'm not going to speak for every trader, but for me, definitely, it was, you know, paycheck when a paycheck came in, I got to spend it on whatever I wanted and everything else. And then I met my wife, and my wife completely flipped. And that flipped when I met her. I mean, not when I got married, but like when I met my wife, I knew she was something special. And I went 110% at her. Um,
Mhm.
and I wanted to win. Like I wanted to uh, take her on dates. She had just moved to Chicago, so when I say I wanted to win, that's not the right way to say it. But
Yeah,
I
you're
really
sleeping on
wanted
the couch,
to.
Brent.
I wanted to be the guy that showed her around the city, and take her out to the nice meals and all that type of stuff. So once I found out she was then not just pretty but beautiful, but career driven, and that side of her, it was like, whoa. I mean, now I have now my why was getting to know her better, making her getting her to choose me, getting her to find me like I'm the best guy out there, and then the engagement, and here we are. But it was obviously, like anybody listening to this or watching this, they're going to have a different why. They're going to have a different wake up routine. And I can only speak about myself, but those will come organically and naturally, and you'll know what they are, as they're happening. So I think that that's like the main thing to take away from this piece of it is, my why again is was very easy to understand and see for myself. But that might be a little bit harder to understand, or it might be even easier than it was for me. And just focusing on that and keeping that in mind. The a job's a job, and a job can be great, a job can be tough, a job can be, terrible at times. But to keep the mind, or keep the why in mind all the time.
Oh my gosh, I just lost him. Okay, we'll see. Okay, he's gonna jump on again. I think he got too excited. Okay. All right, you're back. You're back.
Okay, sorry.
So,
Um,
so
I
why
was that's
you're
like
getting too excited? Okay.
the music at the Oscars, right? Just like
Yeah.
shut up, get off stage.
Right.
No, but all I was saying was that like whatever the why is for someone, to just make sure you keep it in mind that whether through the good times and the tough times at work, and it just makes the job easier and fun.
Yeah, amen. And for me, Brent, I don't know if you do this, but I'm pretty like if you guys one of these days I'm gonna do a live in my office. My whole wall is full of post-it notes, okay? And I get very specific with my mission, with my purpose in life, with my why, and it changes. So every year it changes for me. And I will write down three things because I feel like every year I'm growing, right? So this is what I do, okay? I write down three things that I want to accomplish. And I'm not talking about like I want to make $1 million. No, no, no. I'm talking about like what is it that you want to do? So I have leadership right now. I have leadership meaning it could be like I don't know, it could be being a leader in a space. Like I feel like this is part leadership. I have public speaking. So I do a lot of podcasts. And I also have love, all right? And whatever that means, whether it's self love, whether finding someone to be a partner, whatever that looks like, for me. And for you guys, okay, so it's funny because I teach people like how to practice law of attraction. That's been such a huge part of my life. And but a lot of people, it's funny because when I teach them, I'm like, okay, do this, and they go all excited. And then I said, now I want you to write 3 action steps that you're gonna do to get to that purpose, to that why. And they're like, you can't just wish for it, you guys. You have to act on it. All right. But here's the thing. Here's the beautiful part about the brain. The beautiful part about us is that you have the ability, okay? So the times that you're feeling down, let's say, oh, I got rejected by another customer. Oh, I almost got that PO, but then they changed their mind last minute because the timing was off. You have the ability to change the narrative in your brain. Okay? Yeah, it's you against you guys. Okay, this is not like Brent and I. We're in the same industry. He has a different territory than I am. We have a different lifestyle because I don't have any kids. So, and I'm perimenopause supposedly, Brent, now. So I take a lot of naps for some reason now, and all of a sudden, gotta take naps. But here's the point here. The point here is that wherever you guys are at in life, okay, uh, similar things are gonna happen. You're gonna get rejected. You're gonna have a win, and then you thought you're almost there, and boom, you're gonna get taken down. So it's the cycle of life. All right, it's just part of living. But one thing I know, and I'm gonna leave you guys with this, and I want to hear Brand's opinion on this. It's a cycle. It changes. It's a season. So if you guys are going through a season right now, whether it's in Florida right now, they're getting hit with, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to Florida. They're getting hit with a tornado right now, and it's the worst of the worst. And I know a lot of people right now are going to lose homes, and a lot of people are going to get hurt. And my heart really goes out to you guys. This episode is dedicated to you guys, and going back to the cycle of life, the circle of life, Brent. Let's go back to that because that kind of goes back to your why. That goes back to like basically living with a purpose, living with a mission, not just all about the money, and really enjoying every single day with your family, right? Let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and I think that one thing you just touched on, the circle of life and this job and everything else is the why can change, and that there's nothing wrong with that. So, you mentioned you have post-it notes, and you might write new post-it notes once a year or once a quarter, whatever that may be. And right now my why is my wife and my daughter. Before Lily, it was just my wife, right?
Mhm.
And next year it might be leadership, and my
Mhm.
daughter and my wife. But there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with keeping your why, and there's nothing wrong with changing your why. Again, like you just mentioned, Hurricane Milton. I mean, that's going to displace people. That's good. People are going to lose their homes. Their why is going to change overnight. And, we all know that. And, um, again, we can only just pray for the best for everyone involved and that's affected by it. But, um, I think that what my feeling is I always want to have whys, but also like reevaluate my whys, and have personal ones and things that are have different categories of whys. Whether you like we're saying whys, I called it a dream board for
Love it.
the longest time, and it's like they can be material things, but there's also some goals I have, and one of them was getting into the medical device industry in general. And I want to kind of like bring this back to one of the first things we talked about, and when you mentioned quotas, because I think that um, for however many whys somebody has, a quota shouldn't be one of them. Like reaching goals, absolutely.
Mhm.
Making specific sales that you have in your pipeline and that type of thing. But I remember when I started as an associate, again, I was working with all these tenured reps and great manager, great leaders above my manager, and quotas would come out like year one, and there was a lot of people that whether overall it was a good quota or it was a bad quota for reps. There was always something to kind of complain about. And no quota's perfect, or we'd be rich and companies wouldn't, right? But but I think at the end of the day, I always responded one way, and I would say 20% of it was because it was like brown nosing because I just started. But whenever somebody asked me about a quota or my numbers, you know, I believe it. I can't do anything about it. Like I can complain to my manager, and he or she can complain to their manager and try to adjust it. But like at the end of the day, the odds of that happening are so small. Like if you take a step back and you think, hey, this is my quota, it's not going to change. So my response all the time, whenever somebody brought this up or complained, or was if they were happy about a quota, I always just responded, I'm going to keep my head down and do my job, right? And when I was an associate, again, it was a little bit of a brown nose because that I know that that's what my manager wanted me to hear, or I knew that that's what he wanted to hear. Um, but I I believe that, and I still stand by that. It's like whatever upper management's going to drop on you, and whatever they expect you to do. You just gotta keep your whys, keep your dream
Mhm.
board, but just put your head down and work. And it might adjust the way you approach attitude, activity, and approach. It might adjust. You might have to adjust those a little bit, but um, there's no. I never felt like there was a reason to dwell or fret on something that inevitably I wasn't going to change or I wasn't going to be able to affect.
Love, love, love. Mic drop.
I
You get a mic drop for that one.
hope
That's
people are
good.
still listening at this point.
Oh, they will. No, yeah, they will. I'm sure they're like, come on, guys. No, you know what? Actually, I get a lot of feedback with new and seasoned med device reps. Because these are some of the things, like if you're new, you're learning about this stuff. If you're seasoned, you've probably forgotten about this stuff and you're trying all these different strategies to where all you got to do is go back to the basics again, right?
Mhm.
And I get a lot of feedback from them because, it is important, you guys. And there's no one size fits all. Okay, we all have different personalities, our approaches are different, the way we do things, the way we say things are gonna be different, but there's no one right answer. This is why Gaira hates sales pitches. I hate, 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 hate. And I mention this a lot because I feel like it's I used to work at the bank to where like, welcome to this bank. My name is Gaida. How can I help you? How was your weekend? It's the same freaking story. And I remember my manager, Gaida, you forgot to ask how was your weekend. I'm like, oh, you get deducted a point. And I'm like, darn. So that's what I'm saying, guys. There's no one size fits all. Okay. You gotta get to know your customer. And you got to be able to take notes too. Like I have when I forget things all the time. I'm really bad with names. So I will ask them 3 times, hey, can you tell me what your name is? And I have my notes like ready to go. Name so and so. He was the director of this, and his kids' names are this, and his dog's names are this. So when I come back, I'm like, hey, how's your daughter? How was the birthday party last weekend? You know, Brett and I, we meet a lot of people, and we have big territory. So Brett, how do you do it? Are you just like really, really smart where you remember every name?
No, no, not at all. I'm the opposite. I'm really, really dumb. No, it's just, I think that the biggest thing for me is to be. I've said it a couple times in this conversation, but it's to be present. So that I take notes just like you. I will walk out of any meeting I have, and I will take notes about the person I met with, who answered the call at the OR desk. I mean, the anesthesia tech, different divisions, different, companies out there listening to this, but for our division at Medtronic, there are so many people involved, and there are so many people that can kill or move a deal fast, that it's so important to just to be personable and to take care
Mhm.
of everyone involved. My strongest relationships, 3 years in, my strongest relationships are now with the clinicians, are now with supply chain. They're with the anesthesia techs, equipment coordinators. I mean, those are the people that I can call on. I can see at a moment's notice. I can drop in and say hi to them, and I learn so much about what's going on in the hospital. Um, that's just, and again, it's understanding what you need to do in your specific job industry, um, what medical device company you're at. Again, I can only speak on myself and on behalf of myself, but um, just understanding what is going to make things easier for you, it usually works out that way. And I guess going back to your statement earlier about like the way you approach something. I think that one of the biggest things for me is there are no two reps that are similar or the same, I should say, and there's no right way to do things all the time. I have so many colleagues that are uber successful. I might not ever scratch the surface of their success, and they do it completely different than I do. But I know how it works for me, and I know
Mm.
what's true to me and what's easiest for me. And I think that the customer picks up on that. So if I go in and I try to have Guida's approach to a conversation, a meeting, a sale, it's not going to be genuine and it's not going to work. Um, and I think that, if you're a seasoned rep, you already can probably have a few bullet points of how you sell. But for a newer rep, I think that that's very important. And I'm sure you'll hear it 100 times when you first start, but you have to kind of develop your own approach to it, and just stick with it. And if you're genuine, it's going to I think you're going to reap the most benefits.
Amen. With I want to go back real quick to like I can't be like that. Well, yeah, because you can't pull up my red glasses. I'm just
I might
kidding.
try. I might get myself a pair.
Right, and my hat. I always like come in with that. They're like, "Who's this lady with a hat and red glasses?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's Gaida." And she's a little crazy, but she's fun. Anyways, all
Yeah.
right. Oh my gosh, Brett, look at the time. Almost an hour. Okay, I told you it's gonna go fast. I'm gonna give you this time to tell everyone where can they find you. How can they follow you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on like the Instagram, Facebook type stuff, but the best way is LinkedIn. You could just look up my name, Brant, Brent, and then Winter like the season, Haler. Um, I am very uh I care a lot about how I was hired. The Going from the manager that hired me to the associate rep role. So I might be shooting myself in the foot right now, but please reach out if someone's interested or has questions about the way I got into the industry. I love telling that story. I'll try to keep it short, but I will also do everything I can to help you, anyone out there that is, that has an idea or has a job opportunity that's trying to do the same. It's I'm forever grateful to my manager that hired me and the team that brought me on in Chicago and Medtronic specifically. Um, and I don't regret for a minute leaving trading to come into this industry. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are trying to do the same thing, and I would love to help them any way I could.
Wow, you guys, you're welcome. By the way, watch. You're gonna have a million emails. Good
Well,
luck.
they have to stay until the very end to see to get all that information, and
Right.
then they deserve
Takes him about 10 to 20 business days to respond.
it.
Let's just
No,
put that.
I'm quick. I'm quick.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Another episode of the Device Diaries. Today is episode 22. Brent, thank you so much for being my guest. This is such a great interview. I appreciate all your insights. I appreciate you telling people to reach out to you because I'm tired of them reaching out to me. So I'm going to pass it along. And I appreciate you being here and being honest and genuine and authentic. This show means a lot to me. And this is my baby. So and I know it's helping a lot of people right now. So this episode is gonna come out on Monday. So next Monday, all right? So please tune in. I'm all over the place. I have 10 different platforms and you'll see this all in my social media. I'll promote Brent in my LinkedIn so you'll see his name. You can follow him. Please follow him. It's awesome. All right, you guys. Thank you for joining us and we'll see you next time.